Okay, shalom. Very exciting lesson, this lesson. We're going to be having a look at the concept of Moshe, the Moshiach of YHVH. Okay, this phrase, the Moshiach of YHVH, comes up quite a few times in the actual Tanakh. And we're going to see how that actually relates to Moshe, but we're going to have a look at some incredible concepts that the gematria of the Moshiach of YHVH reveals. Let's go and have a look. So we're just going to start off with some basic stuff. We've got Moshe is 345 regular, 39 ordinary. They come to 384. You've always got to remember that the Hebrew language is alpha-numerical. So as well as obviously alpha textual understanding, we've also can glean some numerical understanding and connections also. So Moshe, we've got 384 regular and ordinal together. The Moshiach of YHVH is 384. So straight away we've got a powerful connection. Okay. Moshe is the Moshiach of YHVH. Some people have their fantasy fiction versions of Mashiach, but the Mashiach of YHVH, as revealed in the Torah, is Moshe. Okay, ultimately it's Moshe. But as we know, Moshe has been, he appeared as Moshe for the Bnei Yisrael, but he also appeared in the form of Yeshua. And he was elevated up to the level of Mashiach ben Yosef. I've gone on about this many, many times, and these teachings confirm this over and over and over again. Okay, so the Mashiach of YHVH is Moshe. This is an umbrella term for Mashiach. 78 ordinally, they come to 462. 78 is 2 times 39, and as we can see, 39 is also the ordinal of Moshe. So whichever way you look at it, both these numbers for the Moshiach of YHVH are directly related to Moshe. And as we can see here, even 2 times Moshe. So big connections between the concept of the Moshiach of YHVH, which is revealed in the Torah, and Moshe, who was the first redeemer, brought the children of Israel out of exile, out of Mitzrayim, Egypt. Okay, let's go have a look at some of the bigger numbers regarding Moshiach of YHVH. This here is the ordinal of Moshiach of YHVH, or Moshiach YHVH. So we've got Moshiach. This is when the letters are in the ordinal place within the Aleph Beth. So the Mem is the 13th letter of the Aleph Beth, so 13 times 13. These are the square ordinal letters. So there's the square ordinal numbers of each letter. So the Mem, 169. The Shin, this is 21 times 21, 441. That actually is the gematria of Emeth, truth. You've got 100, which is the Yod, 10 times 10. The Chet, which is 8 times 8, 64. And then we go in, this is the YHVH aspect to it. So you've got the Yod, 10 times 10, He, 5 times 5, Vav, 6 times 6, and the final He of YHVH, 5 times 5, 25. So 774 is Mashiach, the ordinal of Mashiach, and 186, and keep note of this number, it's very significant, because as you see it comes up in multiple places. So 186 is YHVH, the ordinal of YHVH, but it's also the regular squared of YHVH, because all the letters of YHVH are 10 and below, and if they're 10 and below, it means the ordinal and the regular numbers will be exactly the same. Okay. Squared regular. So this is where we take the square of the regular values. So the Mem is worth 40, so that would be 40 times 40. Shin is 300, 300 times 300, which was 90,000. And then the 10 times 10, which would be the same, and all the rest would be the same as the ordinal. So it's basically these two. That would be 1060, 40 times 40, and 300 is 90,000. So this is why you get such big numbers, because the Shin regularly is worth 300. So this is a squared regular value, And as we can see, we've got some extremely significant numbers here. We've got 613, which is the 613 commandments. And we've also got this 150, where 150 is kanaf, wing. So we've got, we know that the Moshiach ben Yosef is likened to the wing of a bird. Moshe is the body of the bird, and Moshiach ben David is the right wing of the bird. This is an analogy that I share with you many times through the teachings. That's why we've got to have a united concept of the Moshiach. So obviously the Moshiach ben Yosef is Yeshua. Moshiach ben David is yet to be revealed incarnate. However, his soul is becoming revealed at this time in this world. Okay, so we know that he is either here now and in a process of being elevated up fully to the status of Moshiach ben David, or is very, very close to coming and appearing again. Okay, so we know that this is very important, the 613 mitzvot as outlined. Also, there's an incredible gematria that's related to this. The rabbis say that the negative commandments and the positive commandments, there's you shall not do, and then there's that which are the negative commandments, you're not to do this, and then there's the positive commandments which you have to do. But they both add up to 613. Okay, but they also say that each of the commandments is like either a bone or a sinew from within the human body. Okay, so bearing that in mind, I've just got one gematria. I've not pulled it up before and I've not gone over it before, but I have come across it, and I thought to myself when I came across it, this is incredible. Okay, so just brought this screen up very quickly. It's here, look. For he knows our formation. Comes to 482, 131, and as we can see, this is the spelling out of Moshiach. So Mem Shin Yod Chet comes to 878, 131. So we know ordinarily. So we know there's a relationship between the Moshiach and for he knows our formation, because we're all included in the Moshiach. Just as we were all included in the fall of Adam, we will all be included in the rising up of Moshiach. Okay, so there's an aspect of our formation that is definitely and absolutely connected to the Moshiach. And look at this, together they come to 613. So it's exactly as the rabbi said. We have been formed, and the commandments, the way that we have been formed is in accordance to the 613 commandments. So just thought I'd bring that up because the 613 commandments really represent the Torah of Moshe. Okay, the revelation of the name YHVH from within the letter of the law. The Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef is above the letter of the law, but those two will be brought together by Melech David. King David will bring both those together as one, because one reveals the inner dimension of the Torah. One reveals the inner dimension to the name YHVH, the utter, absolutely all-merciful aspect to YHVH. And one is the external dimension to the name YHVH. And together they need to be brought together as one. Okay, so just thought I'd show you that. It's very, very interesting. And look how that relates back to the Moshiach of YHVH. Let's go back and have a look now. Okay, so you can obviously see this, what we've just gone through. He knows our formation, 613 commandments and mitzvot. Okay, and then we've got this whole concept of the wing, which is very much related to the tzitzits, which are very much related to the commandments anyway. The tzitzits, which is the fringes of the garment, are put on the corner of the garment, and the name for the corner of the garment is kanaf, wing. And this is the whole concept of why the Moshiach will have healing in his wings, in the way that he fulfills the commandments. So this is why we know that Yeshua never came to do away with the commandments. He came to fulfill them. Okay? Which is a completely different concept. So there is going to be this unity. And part of the the Torah of the Moshiach ben Yosef in exile, just as the Torah of Moshe has gone into exile, and it's gone to an extreme, an Erev Rav extreme that brings separation, regarding the keeping of the commandments. It's gone to a level of stringency that is not Torah. It's gone beyond. But so too as the Torah of Moshiach, the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef, it's the inner dimension to the name YHVH. This has become corrupted. It's in exile. It's in Greco-Roman mindset, and it's been allowed to ferment in all the evil ways that such a descent would cause, and so that it's become corrupted. But there is truth there is truth to be found, and it's for us to find the truth. Okay, and the only way that we can find the truth of both the way the Erev Rav Torah of Moshe has descended into all the Agadic tales, and the way that the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef has descended, and in order to bring them together in unity as one, is through the Torah. The Torah is what will reveal the truth. Okay, just as the Torah reveals the truth about Moshe, just as the Torah reveals the truth about the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, I don't look anywhere else. I only look to the writings of the sages, or the New Testament, or the Talmud, and things like that. If it conforms to what the Torah has said, it's got to conform to what the Torah has said. Ultimately, it's got to conform to the name YHVH. Our interpretation has got to conform to the name YHVH. What do we mean by that? Well, if you're in a situation where the name YHVH is revealed to you, this illumination should illuminate that is what you need in order to know what is Torah and not. If you are in a back-to-back relationship with the name YHVH, and you are peeping at this name through the cracks of your own exilic experience, you will not be able to fully determine what is Torah and what is not. You will be peeping through the cracks. It's like many of the sages say, you have to have YHVH before you always. When YHVH is before you always, and you are looking at the entire of existence through that name that you are in a relationship to, that you are in a position of revelation with, in a face-to-face relationship, then you are able to discern what Torah is, because Torah is the name YHVH. Okay, so if it brings you to a place of nearness to that name, and I mean in a face-to-face nearness to the name, and you know the difference, then it is Torah. Okay, and this is where we can determine what is truth and not. It's not necessarily what is written. It's the way we interpret what is written in proximity to the name YHVH. So, I mean, that's my understanding of it. So we've got to be very careful. We've got to be very careful that we are, just because we call something Torah does not necessarily mean to say it's Torah. So a lot of what we call Torah is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's just an absolute fact, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it until you have a revelation of the tree of life. Then you know this Torah is not the Torah that you thought it was. Okay, so you've got to be able to be aware of exactly where you are in the process of revelation and concealment. Okay, and we are in deep exile. And it's no point fooling ourselves thinking that we are nearer than what we are. And it's no point thinking ourselves that all that we have been taught in exile is Torah. It isn't. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we've got to be able to discern the difference, because one brings separation and one brings unity. One brings a revelation of Moshiach ben David, and one brings concealment and death. And it's just like the fact that Moshiach ben David was born and died on Shavuot. Okay, what does this mean? It means there's two Torahs. It's the Torah of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and there's a Torah that brings death to the concept of Moshiach ben David. Why does it bring death to him? Because it conceals the name YHVH. It brings separation. It brings a sense of elitism. It brings a sense of, you feel better than other people, judgment, severity. This causes a death to the soul of Moshiach ben David. It doesn't arouse within us the soul of Moshiach ben David. It brings death, whereas the tree of life arouses within us the soul of Moshiach ben David. And this is the Torah that is the name of YHVH. This was the Torah that was smashed. Okay? This was the Torah that was smashed. It's still in the Aron. But this is the Torah where it's the names of YHVH. All the Torah is comprised of holy names. The holy names of YHVH. All the holy names. So you are very aware when the Torah that you are reading and the Torah you are perceiving is bringing about a revelation of the name YHVH. And you are very aware that this Torah is also bringing about a revelation of the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. In fact, the soul of Moshiach ben David. You are aware of this Torah and the difference between this Torah, which is the tree of life, and the Torah, which leads to separation and judgment and severity, and do's and don'ts. This is permissible, that's not permissible. And this is talked about in the Torah. This is even talked about in the Zohar, Might try and pull you something up, just wait a minute. Okay, so this is quite a complex piece of writing. I would interpret it the way that I spoke about, because there is some concepts that are highly Kabbalistic and highly coded, very highly coded. So I will read you it, and then I will try and interpret it as I've just spoken. It's the tree of life. This is from Bereshith, Zohar. These are references on one of the copies that I have of the Zohar, Rabbi Ashlag's copy of the Zohar, the Sulam, I think it's called. It says, if they repent, it is said of them, and Hashem showed a tree, and Hashem showed a tree. I don't think I've copied that quite right. I think it's him a tree. The tree of life by which the waters were made sweet. As the bitterness of the deadly poison was removed from the Torah, the sweetness of it, which is an elixir of life, was revealed to them. And this tree of life is Moshe the Mashiach. See where we've got there, look? Moshe the Mashiach. The soul of Moshe shall be revealed at the coming of the Messiah, as it is written of him before the coming of Messiah. The rod of Elohim is in my hand. The rod of Elohim is Metatron, who has life on one side and death on the other, as he changes from a serpent to a rod and a rod to a serpent. When he changed into a rod, he was helpful to Moshe from the side of good, and life issued from him. But when he changed into a serpent, he worked against him, because death was on his side. So immediately Moshe fled from it. The Holy One, blessed be he, delivered Metatron into the hands of Moshe, so that he might use him by the secret of the rod of Elohim. As long as it is in the hands of Moshe, it becomes a rod and not a serpent. Metatron is the secret of the oral Torah, which prescribes what is forbidden and what is permitted, namely the sides of good and evil. This is similar to Metatron, who is the secret of the Torah of Bria. But in Atziluth it is written, nor shall evil dwell with you. And the entire Torah consists of the holy names of the Holy One, blessed be he. As soon as Moshe smote the rock with a rod, the Holy One, blessed be he, removed it from Moshe's hand, as it is written, went down to him with a staff, to smite him with it. The staff is the evil inclination, the serpent and everything. All the troubles in exile are because of the serpent. In other words, the serpent is the cause of all the sufferings and punishments of exile. Okay, so let's consider that all this is highly coded stuff, and it's basically a little bit like what I've said. Okay, so we can be in a situation where we are not fully face to face with the name YHVH, and we might not even be aware of it because we're in exile, and because we're told this is Torah, and we are the chosen of YHVH. And even though we can be suffering a lot, and even though we can be subject to all the forces of the evil inclination, We can still think that we are somehow superior because the Torah that we are reading tells us this, and we are good if we do this, and we are evil if we do this. But never can we come face to face with YHVH when we are in this state of exile from his name. Okay, like I say, we're just peeping at him through the cracks, and our Torah is really keeping us in that place, because it's not the Torah of life, the tree of life. It's a Torah of do this, don't do this, and plus it's a Torah that has descended into exile. So it's a Torah of Moshe in exile if you're Jews, and if you're non-Jews, if you believers in believers in Yeshua, it will be the New Testament and the teachings that have descended into Greco-Roman mindset. It's written in Greek, so there's all kinds of exilic mindsets that are developed as a result of the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef descending into exile, which is basically the inner name of the name YHVH. But it's descended into exile, but people are not aware of this. So they interpret the Torah in accordance to their exile, which is Greco-Roman exile predominantly if you're a Christian, Erev Rav exile if you're Jewish, and then there's also Ishmaelite exile. So there has been a revelation, of God, the Creator, within Islam, especially the and also his name, although he's not called his name, the fact that he's known to be merciful, which is his name, is all merciful within Islam. So there's a truth that's descended. It's descended into Ishmaelite mindset. So these people are unaware that they're of the exile that they're in. They just see the exile other people are in. It creates a lot of division. So you've got a Torah, you've got some revelation, in other words, but you've also got high levels of concealment, and people are not able to discern that concealment is something other than YHVH. It's not his name revealed to you. It's just as this is, I suppose, what the Metatron. You could the code for Metatron. It's that ability to reveal and conceal the name YHVH. So exile is the ability to reveal and conceal the name YHVH, but we need to be in a place where it is fully revealed. It can't just suddenly become a serpent. It can't just suddenly, provoke our evil inclination. It's just YHVH, and that is it. Nothing else. The Torah that you've got is the name YHVH. There's nothing else. Okay, so even when you're not in a place of fully, we're still all in exile. But I hope you can understand, if you can attain a revelation of the name YHVH that transcends in some ways the revelation that you gain from the books that you read or from the exile into which you have descended. And I've had experience of all exile, all of the exiles we all have. I began my journey of faith as a non-believer from a secular family, and then I descended into a Greco-Roman mindset that you find within Christianity, thinking that I am the best, and the Torah confirmed it. The Torah that I was reading, the text that I was reading was confirming this. Everybody else is going to perish and die. We are the chosen, and everybody else is damned, and everybody else is somehow antichrist or satanic. This is the mentality. And then I went towards Judaism when I questioned some of the things that didn't make much sense. And I eventually abandoned my faith in Yeshua completely for 7 years, and I went towards converting to Judaism. And then I ended up with the Erev Rav mentality. Oh no, Jews, we're the superior ones, aren't we? We're the only chosen, and because our Torah tells us this, and everybody else, well, are they even real humans? I mean, this literally is found in Judaism. These are literal beliefs to be found. It's Erev Rav mentality, but this is what I mean. It doesn't bring about a spirit of unity, it brings about a spirit of division. And then I've also had, when I was doing my teacher training to be a teacher, I ended up at schools which were over 90% Muslim schools, and literally Muslim schools. There was maybe one or two white people there, but very, very few. And I ended up in the heart of the Muslim communities within the UK, which was Bradford, around the Bradford area. I was greatly blessed from that experience. This was not a negative experience for me, but I was able to also be aware of a lot of the exile to which Ishmaelites are. The Ishmaelite exile, because you were aware of issues, the strain on the Asian communities within the UK, it's unbelievable. And, some of the dark things that go on, all the drugs, there was a lot of incidents, high levels of incidents of people in prison that were now from a Pakistani heritage. There was start to be low performing, the lowest performing boys in the entire UK became Pakistani heritage boys, so there had to be all kinds of things put in place to support them and to get them more engaged in the education system and things like that. So all kinds of things going on, but you were aware there was a lot of darkness within the communities. There was a lot of darkness. When the children started telling you what went on at the mosques, these are not places where you would send your children. They're not places that teach children anything good at all. That there are very unhappy experiences for the vast majority of Muslim children to go every day to mosque. And these people really, they're not interested in children. They're not interested in the needs of children. They're just interested in indoctrinating perpetually. And children just don't want to sit there and listen to it. And they get beaten. They literally get beaten. There's a very common one where they pull the ears and they basically just humiliate these children into submission. They humiliate them and beat them into submission. And it's just a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And so I was very much exposed to that. So you can see that even though there is some truth in all these, there's also a lot of concealment that needs to be dealt with. There's a great deal of concealment that needs to be dealt with. So this is what I'm talking about. There's a Torah that is a Torah of good and evil. And then there's the Torah that is really like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There is some revelation, but there's a lot of concealment. And the concealment inflames our evil inclination. And to the point where, if you are Jewish, there's some of the mindsets that you have towards other aspects of humanity are just repulsive. Less than the dog that you have in your house or the cat you would own. They're just repulsive. A sense of false superiority. Just a little bit. I don't like to use the analogy like Nazis, but how Nazis viewed themselves as better than everybody else when they were the lowest of the low. This mentality, Amakalite mentality, which is part of the Erev Rav mentality. An aspect of that is Amakalite. Sees himself as utterly and absolutely superior and above everybody else. It's a false sense of superiority. We should be humble people. The Torah should humble us. The name YHVH should truly humble us. We are all equally evil in comparison. It should... And a revelation of the name YHVH, a true revelation of the name YHVH, and I talk from experience, the only thing that you are inspired to desire is unity. What you have seen, you desire for every single human being. Okay, when you see his name, your only desire is for every other human being to be given this privilege. It's not about you being better because you know you're not enough. This name is so great that you are not enough worshipping it. You are not enough. If the entire creation is not enough. So that's why you seek unity, not division, because you are not enough for this name. You're not enough to stand alone before this name, because it's so worthy. It's so worthy of all our praise. So why would you waste an opportunity to not, for another human being not to connect to that name? When you have had the revelation of that name, that this is by the grace of YHVH. Even though you've made great efforts to seek out that name, ultimately it's a gracious gift that he revealed it to you. So it's like that grace be given to every human. I've talked about this before, that, the Elenu prayer is you realise that everything other than his name is vanity and emptiness. But we're all subject to that vanity and emptiness. So this is the difference between a Torah that is exiled and a Torah that is redeemed, will bring about a people that are redeemed. Okay, this is a complicated way of saying a little bit what I've said. It's all about the name YHVH, nothing else. If you are in a relationship, or if you have received a revelation of the name YHVH, and you have turned and put that name before you always, then you will be able to interpret the Torah. That's from a place of redemption, and it will free you from these exilic minds, because you see the futility of these exilic ways of thinking. It's utter emptiness. It's utter vanity. The Erev Rav mindset that dominates in Judaism, and the Greco-Roman mindset that dominates in Christianity, and the Islamic Ishmaelite mindset that dominates over the entire of the Muslim population, is just utter and absolute vanity compared. You think it's utter, there's nothingness in it. It's just stupidity. It's utter folly compared to a revelation of the name YHVH. Everybody else thinking the supreme and causing separation. It's utter and absolute vanity. It's like I've said before, we are all, this is why you seek unity, you seek every tongue to confess, every knee shall bow. I feel like I'm getting a bit distracted because I never imagined to put this up. But I hope I have made myself clear. I probably have to do a whole lesson on this. I hope I've made myself clear to some sort of degree. To me, all these words, this word Metatron, the way that I would put that is that we have to somehow battle against this. We have to bring this into subjugation. This is part of the work that we have to do to get beyond this state. We've got to somehow get beyond this. I mean, that's the way I look at it. We've been given this exile. We've been given an exile, and there's certain forces that maintain that exile. Okay? There's certain forces that maintain exile. They're like, for example, our sparring partner. Okay, but we're not quite aware of this. So what we tend to do is we've convinced ourselves that the very thing that we're supposed to overcome is the very thing that we are seeking. It's like we're seeking to fulfill this Torah that is really rooted in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We're seeking to become more and more and more attached to it. We should be fighting against it. We should be defeating it. We should be saying this is not enough. We should be recognising this can't be YHVH. It can't be. It can't be a revelation of YHVH. It must click at some point to us. It did with me. Many years ago, I realised this thing that I was worshipping. This thing that I was worshipping whilst I was trapped within Judaism, the old Erev Rav, going to shul and everything like that. There was something in me that realised that I just knew this was not YHVH that I'd began to worship. It was something else. And, it's quite scary to do battle with that. I was very afraid. I was filled with dread, basically. But I specifically remember, I was on a holiday and I was by the sea and walking around this cliff-top field, just going round and round. And in my mind, I was fighting against this force. I didn't know what it was. I honestly didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something that was not YHVH. But I had possibly started to believe that this was YHVH because I'd gone into Judaism. And but I could tell there was something not right about it. It was a strange phenomena, but it was like fighting against God Himself to a certain degree. But it was almost what I'd created from my exile. I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but that's how I felt at the time. And I remember this specific, I was getting quite vocal about it. I'd have a bit of a fighting spirit because I felt like I was trapped by this particular force, and it felt very powerful. And at the time, it came into my mind that this force was Metatron. But I'd absolutely no knowledge. It was just something in me was saying that this is what it was. You have to fight it. It's not the truth. And I went a long time marching around this field, and I would have called it the prince of this world at the time, but I just was aware there was something that needed to be fought. There was some blockage that was very, very, very powerful. I was marching around this field, I'm going to drag you down from your height or whatever. I was really fighting spirit because I'd had enough. I'd been badly injured in Erev Rav, by Erev Rav exile. I'd been really badly hurt by the whole experience of going towards Judaism. And I'd been hurt within Christianity. It was just, what is this that's before us, and all that pain and suffering. Like, you imagine going towards the Judaism and going to Israel 20 times. In your mind, you're thinking, this is YHVH, this is, and then you're getting slapped here, then slapped there, and this is the will of YHVH. And then suddenly, then the Dayanim are not treating you nicely, and then there's people in the community that you're just looking down your nose, and then you're this second-class citizen with, it just went on and on. You just was digging yourself deeper into a hole. And all the time I was saying to myself, but these are the chosen people, and these are the authority of YHVH in this world. And I was starting to believe all this rubbish, but this rubbish started to hurt me. Because then, when they were hurting me, and they were not acting like agents for the name YHVH, they were acting as Erev Rav, and you're still thinking that they are somehow agents of YHVH, is confusing. And I was confused. And I knew whatever it was that was attacking me I was telling myself, it's YHVH. Then I was thinking, what have I done wrong? I must not be doing it right. I am that second-class person. I'm not worthy. That doesn't want me to be. I'm never, and I was doubt, and all these awful emotions, and then suddenly creating more and more separation. And then all of a sudden, I'm just saying to myself, I had it in my mental picture, all these dark coats and long beards, and, reckoning on that there's such righteous people, these Dayanim and the Rabbinate and things like that. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, they are not holy. It's not YHVH. I don't believe it is. All this image of YHVH that I thought that they were representing on earth, I realised, no, it's not. It's not him. It's not him that they're representing. So this false kind of understanding of YHVH was blocked, but that I'd gained from being in exile, going head to head with these Erev Rav kind of mentality, and all that I found going to synagogue and all the teachings and stuff like that. There's a lot that's wrong about it. And I knew that it created this impression of who YHVH was that was very false. And suddenly in all that, I got detached from true reality. So I thought to myself, it's like something has superseded true reality. Something has taken over. Like a very powerful, and I were worshipping this thing, whatever it was that I'd created in my mind, or whatever force I'd come into contact with. I was trying to appease all the time. if only I just did Shabbat even harder, if only I gave more charity, if only I did this. I was trying to appease this force from hurting me anymore. So my relationship with YHVH was just simply trying to do stuff to stop myself being punished. This is not relate. This and suddenly in all this, I'm thinking, this is not YHVH. It can't be. And I remember, instead of trying to appease this force, what I was, that confused me, I fought it. I realised I had to fight it. I realised it cannot be the truth. It's some kind of force that is in this world, a very powerful force. But it's not YHVH. That's how I felt at the time. Obviously, everything is YHVH. He created all this so that I would wake up. And he was putting the pressure on and on and on till finally I realised, just wait a minute, this is evil. I am not going to bow down to this evil. And I was always trying to appease these wicked men dressed as righteous men, trying to, appear to, you want to please them because you think that they're agents that are somehow going to determine whether you are acceptable or not to YHVH, that they are some agents on earth. I'm talking about the Dayanim here. I had a wicked Dayanim, by the way. I had a very wicked man that I faced. But it was the best thing that could have ever happened because I saw through it all in the end, but it was not a nice time for me. All these things I was very alone because obviously there was nobody else fighting against it. They were all subject to it. They were all willingly subject to it. They all felt holier for being subject to it, but I felt it for what it was. Ultimately, I felt it for what it was, evil, because they'd all been accepted by it. And I'd been rejected, So I, not completely rejected, but that's how I felt. And, and I felt I had to fight against this. And it was, honestly, I believe it was like the Erev spirit, and like I would say, like Metatron or Prince of the World, I think, some way it's called. But I know it was a very powerful force. And at the time, I did possibly even think it was something other than YHVH. I probably did at that time think along those lines, which is erroneous. There's only YHVH. But looking back now, I know it was only YHVH. I've corrected that error. And it was all for good. But I knew I had to fight something. I knew something was something very powerful, that had a very powerful influence in my life, that was presenting itself as God, but wasn't. And I needed to bring this down. And I know I was aware of it walking around that field. Whatever it was, I can't put my finger, I ain't got the words to describe it, but I hope from the story that you've heard, you can figure out what I was going against. It was a very powerful force. Erev Rav is a very, very powerful force. And that's exactly, and it creates an illusion about who YHVH is that ultimately brings about separation and elitism and all these horrendous exilic mindsets that keep you away from YHVH and keep you away from a revelation of Moshiach ben David that kill, that cause death. On Shavuot, the Torah that you get, there's the Torah that kills Moshiach ben David. It's the Torah that causes him to die. And the difference between all these teachings came on. They were born from Shavuot. They were born when I got a great long list. I actually wrote it all out, so I didn't have to go on. There's a massive list of things that you're supposed to read all the way through the night, and I looked at this list on Shavuot, Eve of Shavuot, one Shavuot, and I'm thinking to myself, there's all these righteous people that have been doing this for how many years, and they really haven't made much difference. In this world, we are still in the depth of exile. What is the Torah that's going to make the difference? What is the Torah? And I'd already had a revelation of the name YHVH, and I thought to myself, so quite emboldened, but, I was a little bit, I was quite emboldened, but I wasn't 100% emboldened. I was emboldened enough to ask for a Torah that mattered. I said, give me the Torah that will reveal Moshiach ben David. Give me the Torah that matters. If this is the day we receive the Torah, then give me the Torah that matters. And it was all about a revelation of Moshiach, the truth about Moshiach. I was thinking, I can't keep doing what everybody's been doing, because I've always had this thing at the back of my mind. I can't remember where I got it from. I think it could have even come from Richard Branson. But it was basically, if you keep on doing what you've always done, then you'll always be who you always were. So I'm thinking, gosh, if we just keep doing this, reading all these long lists and doing what all the rabbis have been always doing, where will it actually get us? It's not got us anywhere we need to be. We need something more than this. If we want to get out of this exile, we're going to have something more. We're going to have, and after that day, that's when I started to do the PowerPoints, and that was a real. And it was very, very, very humbling, and I didn't realise how many doubts that I had to confront, and I didn't realise how many fears I had to overcome. And basically, they're the things that exile you. It's your doubt that exiles you, and it's your fears that exile you, and it's just error. You've got so much exilic error that you don't even realise. So much error regarding the concept of Moshiach. You don't even realise, and you haven't got the certainty because you haven't seen it within Torah. You haven't connected enough dots up. You need the Torah that connects all the dots up, that brings you a clarity that you can look into the entire 6,000 years of history and say, Ein Od Milvado, there is nothing but Yod He Vav He, and see it and perceive it clearly, and know this whole process that we're in. So there's a difference, and I know contained within this particular Zohar is something of that difference that I found. I experienced this, but like I said, there was a battle. I was at that stage where looking at the serpent, and I needed a rod. And you need to be able to transform that negative experience of the serpent into a rod. You can't live your life with the Torah as a serpent, biting you, causing separation. It's got to become a rod, and that is the equivalent. It's got to be the name Yod He Vav He for you. If it's not the name Yod He Vav He for you, it's a serpent biting you. Okay, so and that takes revelation. It takes a revelation of the name Yod He Vav He, and it takes you to be strongly attached to that revelation. In order to be able to discern, well, what's a serpent and what's a rod. Okay. Don't think I've made myself particularly clear about that, but anyway, we're moving on now. Okay, so back to this one then. We really haven't got that far. I think I'd not even wrote anything about these two numbers. I'd not even put anything down at all, and then I've spent the entire lesson talking about them. It's the will of Yod He Vav He, and I really do apologise if I've confused you with what I've said, but I didn't expect to be talking about it, so it wasn't clear in my mind. It's just something that was inspired to write about and so to talk about just then. So I do apologise if I've warbled on a little bit, but I just want you to understand that we're living in exile. There's consequences of it. We need to attach to the name Yod He Vav He. And what the biggest mistake that we've made is calling the thing that is concealing the name Yod He Vav He, Yod He Vav He. Okay? This is the big thing that we've got to fight. And subjecting ourselves to the very thing that's concealing the name Yod He Vav He. We've got to wake up and see that this is not Yod He Vav He. Okay, it's not inspiring unity. It's not inspiring mercy and compassion and love and things like that. It's inspiring fear. It's inspiring separation. And this is what we've got to fight against, the concealment that we have called Yod He Vav He. Okay? That is not. Fight against it. You'll be glad you did. You'll be glad you did, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because you'll never know a life of freedom until you do. And this, of all the things that we fight, we can go against Amalek, our doubts, and fight them. We can go against our fears and conquer them. And even our evil inclinations and lusts, we can subdue them. But when we have created, all these things have conspired to create a concealment of the YHVH that we believe is YHVH. This is a big thing that we need to erase. It's the concealment that we think is the revelation. That's the biggest lie of all, and that comes from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that is what bites us. That's what bites us. Okay? So it goes back to this, the serpent on the serpent round the staff. Lift it up. See what it is you believe. See what it is that's biting you and hurting you. And then you've got to see beyond that to the one that's orchestrated this in order to bring you to that place of maturity. This is the big shell that we've got to break out of. It's our false impression of who we think YHVH is, and it's that false impression that we serve. That's what we've got to find. Call it what you want. In my mind, I know at the time the word that came into my mind was Metatron. And somehow I knew I had to fight against this. I don't know why. I really don't even know what Metatron is, but I can tell you the truth of where I was at the time. And like I say, that word Metatron and Prince of the World, both these were coming into my mind. And I was thinking, this is what I'm worshipping, thinking it's YHVH. It's not. I've got to get beyond this. I've got to free myself of this oppression. This is crushing me. It's oppressing me. It's fearing me, and it's making me feel like I'm nothing. This can't be the truth. And it was honestly, I was still subject to all that nonsense for many years after that. But I remember walking around that, and maybe I planted a seed at that time, just walking round and round at the top of that cliff, with every strength that I had. I was determined to bring this force down, to end it, to no longer be subject to it. And did I attain it at that point? No, I definitely didn't. But I don't know if I'd be here today, where I'm at now, if I hadn't confronted that and realised there was something not right. That this was not a revelation of the name YHVH. It was a concealment. I couldn't have put it in those words. I had no idea. All I know, it was hurting me. And it didn't feel right. And I had to put up some fight against it. And I was fearful. It was very fearful. It was very fearful to fight against such powerful forces. But I did it anyway. Right, 960 plus 78. So 960 is the squared ordinals. Okay, of the Moshiach of YHVH. 78 is the regular. The ordinal of Moshiach ben Yosef. The ordinal of the Moshiach of YHVH. So together they come to 1038. Put C over. It's incredible. Wait till we go C over. Right, then we've got the 462, which is the regular and ordinal there, plus the squared ordinal, plus the squared regular, okay, comes to 93,372, which is 251 times 372. All these are incredibly significant. And then 100, it's also equal to 186. What did we say 186 is? That's the squared regular and the squared ordinal of YHVH, so very significant number, 186. And then 502. 186 times 502. All these numbers are highly significant. We're going to have a look at them in time. I don't think we'll get through them all in this lesson, but we are going to have a look at them. Okay. What we're going to look at first. Okay, so we're having a look at the 502 and the 201. Bearing in mind that this is everything that we could have, well, not every number, but all the significant numbers to do with the Moshiach of YHVH. So they're going to reveal something of the essence of the Moshiach of YHVH. And straight away, so these are things that I've come across in my teachings. I haven't gone and looked and thought, looked up gematria for that, looked up gematria. I've simply looked at the gematria that I've already looked at through analysing key messianic texts. Okay? So all these numbers I have come across in my own personal analysis of key messianic texts. That's where I've got them from. What I have been inspired to analyse. Okay, so this one, he must increase and I must decrease. This is the Hebrew that is written about regarding John the Baptist. John the Baptist is Eliyahu Hanavi to Yeshua HaMashiach. I have done a whole teaching on this. It's called Arizal. He's teaching about the Mashiach finally decoded. Okay, Arizal, he's teaching about the Mashiach finally decoded. Okay, and you can see that on my channel, and I go through this entire teaching how the Arizal analysed in his commentary on the Athchanan a verse which was talking about Moshe, the last appearance of Moshe as Mashiach. Okay, and he talked about the fact that Moshe would be in a state of desolation and that he would need to be taught by the Rav Lach. When Moshe was pleading to Hashem, don't let me descend into exile, the Erev Rav exile. And what did he mean by that? He meant his Torah to descend in all the Agadic tales that are found within the oral Torah, because he realised that this would conceal the name YHVH. He didn't want this. Okay, and that's exactly what's happened. So he pleaded, just as Yeshua pleaded. He didn't want to go into the Edomite exile. He was pleading with the Father, let this cup pass. Okay, except it be your will. And it was the will of YHVH to cause the Mashiach ben Yosef to descend into Edomite exile, just as it was the will of YHVH to cause Moshe to descend. And that's one of the, according to Ramchal, that's what distinguishes the difference between the true Mashiach and the false Mashiach. The false Mashiach willingly goes into exile. The true Mashiach definitely does not, is against his will 100%, except it be the will of YHVH. Okay, so Moshe came back at the soul level. Moshe came back, he was reincarnated in the life of Yeshua. He was elevated up through the Ravlach. And that word Ravlach, it is enough for you. Hashem was saying, no, don't talk to me anymore about this. Don't plead with me anymore. You're not going into the promised land. Okay, and the word he used was Ravlach. And Arizal said, and the sages say, this can be interpreted as a teacher for you, i.e., the capacity of Eliyahu Hanavi. A teacher for you will come and teach you and elevate you up from a place of desolation to a place of your final appearance as Moshiach. And that's exactly what happened in the life of Yeshua. The Ravlach, the Eliyahu Hanavi to Yeshua, was John the Baptist. And we can see here, he must increase and I must decrease. And this is Lach, Hu Yeloch Holoch. This is taken from Psalm 126, except there it appears Holoch Yelech. Okay, let me just check that. Because it's quite a while since. Well, you say this psalm every single time you say on a Shabbat, when you say the blessings for the bread. But let me just bring it up, because just to make sure. Yeah, it's verse 6. Holoch Yelech, and it's he who bears the measure of seed walks along weeping. Okay, so that Holoch Yelech is him walking along. Okay, but here, look, it's sort of like I in my walking. He in his walking along must increase, and me in my walking along must decrease. Okay, so that's what it would be. It's basically saying he must increase and I must decrease. But there is this connection to Psalm 126 through these two words, Yelech Holoch. Okay, and like I say, Psalm 126, it's a song of ascent. It says, when Hashem will return the captivity of Zion, we will be like dreamers. Then our mouth will be filled with laughter and our tongue with glad song. Then they will declare among the nations, Hashem has done greatly with these. Hashem has done greatly with us. We were glad, and oh, Hashem return our captivity like the springs in the desert. Those who tearfully sow will reap in glad song. He who bears the measure of seed walks along weeping, but will return in exultation, a bearer of his sheaves. And that word sheaves is 100% relating to Moshiach ben Yosef. So this is all coded. It's letting you know exactly, it's pointing you in the right direction. He must increase, i.e., he must become from the level of Moshe in a state of desolation up to the level of, I'll come to that later. He must increase, just as Arizal said, he must increase a Ravlach, with the Ravlach, a teacher for you, from the level of Moshe up to the level of Moshiach. And that's exactly what John the Baptist does. And this is exactly the most famous saying that John the Baptist gives. And it exactly pinpoints us directly to the right text that we need, the Psalm 126. Absolute precision and accuracy. It's absolute precision and accuracy regarding what the sages says about Moshe pleading in Ve'at Hanan. Moshe pleading and saying, it is enough, Ravlach, it is enough. That can also mean a teacher for you, saying, at some point you have to descend into this era of Rav exile, but at some point you'll come back, you'll be in a state of desolation, you will not know that you're the Mashiach, you'll be elevated up with the Ravlach, and you'll become Moshiach ben Yosef, and then it's pointing us to this critical text, but then you will have to descend again into Edomite exile to go gather in the lost house of Israel. Okay, that's associated with the sheaves. He will gather in the sheaves. And this will be all fulfillment of Mashiach. Okay, so with this one, you've got a direct link. You've got the 251. This is ordinarily 251. 251 is also More, teacher. So Rav can mean teacher, but More is also meaning teacher. In fact, it's more so, well, I'm not saying more so than Rav. Rav can mean increase, but More definitely means teacher. Okay, and this is also linked into Yeshua in some way. I've gone through. If you go listen to that teaching, I'll go through all this in much greater detail, and I'll link it up to Arizal's commentary much more. Obviously, I haven't got time to do that now. Okay. This I've come across before. He turned the sea into dry land. That word dry land is very messianic. One, it's associated with the concept of Armelos, the anti-Mashiach. So if it comes to 347, which is one of the ways that Armelos is written. Okay, but that's the regular of Armelos. And it's the first is the first word in the entire Torah that comes to 347, which is very significantly linked to Armelos, but it's also very significantly linked to the holy opposite that. And obviously, he turned the sea into dry land. This is very much connected to redemption, because obviously the children of Israel left Mitzrayim on dry land. Okay, so there's a force that comes against that, called Armelos. There's a force that comes against Moshiach ben Yosef called Armelos, a very powerful anti-Messiah. And the anti-Messiah is caused by the imagination that we get from having our Torah in exile. It's exilic mindset. It creates a false Messiah. Okay, our exilic mindset that comes as a result of the Torah of Moshe and the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef being in exile, and all the exilic mindset says the will of Yotevav, he's given us a work to do. But all this creates a false understanding of the Mashiach. This bites us, and it also prevents our redemption. We have got to have a truthful understanding of the Moshiach of YHVH as revealed in the Torah, the mind of YHVH, not revealed within our own fantasy fiction minds that are very much inspired by our evil inclination. That is the result of exile, where our evil inclination dominates over our good inclination until we have the truth revealed to us by the power of Eliyahu Hanavi to inspire our good inclination to dominate over our evil inclination and move from a place of exile into redemption. So we've got this here. So this is a very significant word, this word dry land. Okay, that's what I'm trying to point out here. It goes to 502. We can see it's linked up to a concept of Moshiach of YHVH. So there's a lot involved in that, that goes beyond what then meets the eye. There's a lot involved with that. There's this whole concept of false Moshiach and the true Moshiach, the Moshiach of YHVH. We need to battle against the false Moshiach that we've got to reveal the true Moshiach. The true Moshiach, that is the Moshiach of YHVH. We've got to make sure that our Moshiach is the Moshiach of YHVH and not our Milos, a false Moshiach. We've got to go with the truth. What is the truth? The truth is Moshe, Yeshua, all that's, the fact that both of those have descended into Erev Rav and Edomite, and the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef has also descended into Yishmaelite. I mean, the concept of Jesus, Yeshua, has descended within Yishmaelite exile mindset. Is in the Quran. Is in the Quran more times than Muhammad. Okay, it's in 25 times. It's also called the Word of God. This is not an appellation given to Muhammad. So we've got to understand that he has got a very significant place within Islam, but it's also corrupted because it's within the Yishmaelite mindset. Exiled. We need to retrieve the truth. Okay, so here we go again. We've got Esav filled. Esav is got to be transformed. He's got to be transformed, just like the sea had to be turned into dry land. Esav has got to be transformed into shalom. Okay, it's got to be utilised and transformed into shalom. But Esav is also synonymous with the nations and synonymous with the exile into which this exile that we're in now, these last 2,000 years, is called the Edomite exile. Although there's other heads of the exile, that is the overall term of this exile, Edomite exile. And Edom was a descendant of Esav. So we're basically trapped within the powers of our own evil inclination, and the only thing that we have to overcome that is the truth. It's very difficult to discern what the truth is when the Torah, that is the truth, has descended into exile with us. Okay, so it's a baton. The ultimate truth is the name YHVH. So if our Torah doesn't reveal the name YHVH, it's not the Torah of life. And we've got to be able to discern this. And it's very difficult because we have been very, very deep exile. Okay, I gazed at his, Adam's, 2 heels, and they shone so brightly that they are similar to 2 suns. That's from Bava Batra 58b. This is a very interesting text. I have actually done some quite deep analysis on that, but I haven't ever done a teaching on it. Anyway, it's just come up on this time because it comes to 431, and that's related to this concept here, which is very, very important. It links a lot up for us, and we can see how it's directly related, because this is the cup of desolation that also comes to 431. So we can see there's a link between this cup of desolation and then this bit here, which is highly coded text within the Talmud. I gazed at his, Adam's, 2 heels, and heel is very much associated with Moshiach, as in the footsteps of Moshiach, the heels of Moshiach, and they shone so brightly that they are similar to 2 suns. Okay, so this is all highly coded stuff regarding Moshiach. And we can see here that it's definitely related to this concept of the cup of desolation. And I talked about Arizal saying Moshe was in a state of desolation until he'd be raised up. The word for desolation that the Arizal used was shamama. And shamama comes to 386. Shin, mem, vav. Shamama, desolation. That's one of the ways you can... Shamamu comes to 386, which is Yeshua. So the exact word that Arizal used in his commentary came to Yeshua. Okay. In this instance, however, cup of desolation, Shama, is the exact same letters as Moshe. You know, if we just put the mem before the shin, it's Moshe. So we know that Moshe is in a state of desolation and he needs elevating up. And it's just as the Arizal indicated, he was in a state of Yeshua and he needed elevating up to the level of Moshiach ben Yosef. And then once he reached that level, he was then descended into exile in order to accomplish and suffer with us and accomplish everything that needs to be accomplished in order for us to overcome these forces of exile and usher in Messianic era and reign. So that comes to 71. What's 71? That's the ordinal of 71 is Yonah. Okay? So Yonah is the only sign that Moshiach ben Yosef, Yeshua, gave to a wicked and adulterous generation, which is what we are, because we're wicked in that we create separation, and we are adulterous in that we are serving something other than YHVH. Okay? We are in many ways serving the concealment and trying to appease the concealment, you know, and the concealment's hurting us, and we are trying to stop that concealment from hurting us, and we are doing a lot to serve the concealment rather than serve YHVH. Okay? We do a lot to serve our fears and our doubts and our everything else that exile creates. But the sign is Yonah. What's the sign of Yonah? The sign of Yonah is the sign of peace. Everything about it comes up a lot. If you've listened to my teachings, I can't even explain. It is such an incredible and important sign for the revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef, and also the unity between Moshe and Moshiach ben Yosef and Moshiach ben David. It's a massive, powerful sign. It's a sign of the dove. Yonah means dove. Okay, so dove is a symbol of peace, and we need to transform Esav into Shalom. Esav is 376 and Shalom is 376. So we've got to transform our inclination to serve ourselves for our own selfish purposes into an inclination to serve for the sake of the name YHVH. Okay, let's go and have a look. So I hope you can appreciate that this is very significantly linked to all these, significantly linked to a revelation of the Moshiach of YHVH. And this is a revelation that we need to overcome the exilic Moshiach that we have created, that is Amalus, that actually kills the truth regarding Moshiach ben Yosef. Okay? It kills a revelation regarding Moshiach ben Yosef. Amalus kills the revelation. It's fantasy fiction. It kills the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef. And until we get the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef, none of us are leaving exile. We need to get the essence, the bones of Yosef out of exile. And that's our job to do. Okay, and we definitely need the likes of Moshe, and we definitely need the likes of this lady, Serach Bat Asher. So this verse is connected to two verses that I've done. I did a whole teaching on this verse. It's called, I've done a playlist now, How His Hidden Things Were Revealed. So how Esau was searched out, how his hidden things were revealed. That's from Obadiah 1, chapter 1, verse 6. Comes to 1255, which is 5 times 251. So we can, when it comes to revealing the Moshiach of YHVH, there's a lot that we can gain from here, because 5 times anything is definitely connected to a rectification of it. Okay. What else have we got? We've got the name of Asher's daughter was Serach. That comes to 1757, which is 7 times 251. Okay, so we can see again how this is connected to all these concepts. Okay, Sarach was the woman who she helped Moshe to get the bones of Moses. Okay, the bones of Joseph out of Egypt. A very important woman, and it's all coded messages. It's basically, there's so much involved in all these different aspects that are involved in ending exile. But Sarach was a woman from a long time ago, but we also need to connect to that, the soul of Sarach now, in order to bring about a revelation of the bones of Yosef, Moshiach ben Yosef, and she is obviously she's greatly connected to Moshe as well. Moshe is the most significant aspect of a revelation of the Moshiach of YHVH. So all these things are interesting. I had expected to go through I expected this to be one lesson, but I've talked a little bit, and I hope it's been significant, because I really wanted to talk. I expected to be talking about the things that we're talking about, but I think they'll be important to somebody. These we're going to have to go through next lesson, the phenomenal. So the next lesson, it will be this number here, which is totally and utterly phenomenal. And then there's some other things to go through. But I'll just leave it at that for now. And then I will say shalom.